So I have a pretty weird reincarnation story for you. It started many years ago when I was 19, and over the course of 15, almost 20 years, 3 different psychics have told me that I was alive in medieval times, but it gets more specific. When the journey started for me at 19 years old, it was very random, and I was a skeptic back then. I went to this lady's business. She worked out of her house. She had a sign that was a giant hand for palm reading outside of her house. And a lot of me and my friends went there. At one point, I went a few times. At one point, she told me that if I gave her an extra $10, she would tell me about a past life. If I gave her $60, she'd tell me the whole story. Well, at the time I had an extra $10, and for that she told me I was alive during medieval times. I took it with a grain of salt at that time. Now we're gonna fast forward about 15 or so years later, and I am 1,500 miles away with a friend in Los Angeles. We're going to an open mic night, and there's a tarot reader there. I was so excited to talk to her. By this time, I am no longer a skeptic and just getting into mediumship, angels, a spiritual path. I'm like at the very beginning of it, but I was so excited to talk to this lady. She had a table set up, and I waited in line, and when it was my turn, I happily sat down at her table. I sit down at the table with this lady, and she pulls some tarot cards for me. And one of the first things she says was, "You were alive in medieval times. You were a knight." I'm gonna be honest with you, that kind of spooked the crap out of me because of what the lady had said when I was 19, right? So she continues to tell me that I was a knight and I fought on the front lines. She didn't tell me for what king, what time period. She told me that I was a Casanova of sorts, which more so she was trying to say sounded like a womanizer, which in this lifetime I don't think that's a very good thing to be, but I listened up to what she had to say, and that's what she said. So the next day, right after that, not 15 years later, I was still really curious about this, because now I've had 2 psychics tell me I was alive in medieval times. Like, what is that about? That next day, me and my friend decided to go to Venice Beach, and there was a palm reader this time, and I just couldn't help myself. So I went and I got a reading with her, and one of the first things she said was, and I kid you not, "You're transgender and you were a knight during medieval times." Since these readings have happened, I have had a lot of synchronicity and a lot of visions come through from that lifetime. And since then, I have done quantum healing therapy, QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis, and I've gone into that past life. And man, did I learn a lot that I would have never have imagined. And I'm so excited to share it with you. Like and follow for part 2.